Ligolangus viridis. It's an arboreal colubrid from tropical Africa, and everything about it is built for the canopy. That thick tail is pure muscle. It's the anchor.
Fishing skills have been developed to a high degree by the angler heron. You can see it there scraping out a little pool at the river's edge. Also stacks a small dam to keep the water shallow.
Oh, that's clever.
On that pile a few feet back.
She's found a antelope, a paler female behind him, the big male with the dark stripe in front, the paler female behind him. They're migratory predators of the northern tundra, about the only thing out here that scares a woolly gigantelope.
This is the booty bird, Corvardia niger. It's a tundra-dwelling relative of the carrion crow, but a lot bigger, about the size of a small crane. See that long neck? It's mostly bare skin.
This is the broadbeak, one of the larger predatory birds you find in conifer forests. Wingspan just over a meter, and those broad, blunt wings let it dart between trees like it's threading a needle.
These are the carnivorous termites, descendants of soil-feeding species, but now specialized scavengers. They live only in what used to be Central Africa 50 million years after our present day.
This little fella's a chuckaboo, a rainforest possum that's taken to living a bit like a monkey. See that tail? It's as strong as an extra hand. They'll swing branch to branch, hang upside down.
This little finch is called the common pine chuck. It's a carduline native to the coniferous forests across northern Eurasia. Males, like the bright red fellow on top there, can look...
This is the desert shark, a predator from the arid plains of Central Asia. It's actually a type of white-toothed shrew, just blown up to the size of a small dog. That bare, wrinkled skin works like a coin.
This big fellow is called a Distarterops. They're close cousins of the polar ocean predator rats, but a lot chunkier, as you can see. That paddle tail and those webbed paws let him move through ice water like it's...
This big fella you're looking at is what we call the fat snake. It's a heavy-bodied elapid that comes out of the undergrowth of the tropical forests up in northern Australia. Despite the name, it's all muscle under those scales, built for quick bursts through leaf litter. Beautiful.
A relative of the great auk that's adapted to life in the polar ocean. Notice the thick paddle-shaped beak and those strong webbed feet. They can't fly, but they're powerful underwater swimmers using...
This is the flower-faced potu, a diurnal species from the tropical grasslands of South America. Those pale facial feathers act like petals around the eye, helping break up its outline when it's perched motionless on a branch. Even in daylight...
Now watch this little one. She'll spread those webbed arms and sail. Perfect. That stretch of skin runs from wrist to hip. It lets the flunky steer like a paper airplane.
Whoa, that's cool.
They're descended from vervet monkeys, but instead...
Is the Gandymot, a relative of the Eurasian magpie, though a lot flashier. That bronze on the belly and the turquoise tail, those are all natural. They're tundra birds and some of the sharpest hunters of the north.
This is the gull, the largest member of the Herpestein family. Unlike most mongooses, it's a strict scavenger. They'll crack open bones other animals leave behind, and they digest nearly everything, even the...
Right in front of us is the giant pitta. It's one of the strangest members of the pitta family, and despite the name, it's not huge, just larger than the rest.
You're looking at a giant tala, the heaviest animal in any of the world's tropical forests. It's a relative of kangaroos, but it behaves more like a ground sloth, spending its life in the understory. Adults can top 700...
This is the growth, a little hornhead that prefers the grassy, south-facing slopes of the African-European mountains. You can see the big fellow in front that's a male. His horns are flat and shaped like bony plates.
This rodent is about 60 centimeters long, excluding the tail, and has hooves developed on its third and fourth digits that let it run across the craggy landscape of the Rocky Desert. The second and fifth digits...
This is the hawkbower, a close relative of the satin bowerbird. You can see the same silky sheen in the feathers, but it's adapted to life on the tropical forest floor. That tunnel of sticks behind him is his...
This little marsupial is called a hiri-hiri. It's a rainforest cousin of the Tasmanian devil, though quite a bit smaller and more arboreal. They spend almost all their time in the canopy using that long prehensile...
Killa, sometimes called the white-toothed desert shrew. It's actually closer to a giant shrew than a coyote or jackal, though it looks a bit like both. They roam the dunes of North Africa.
You're looking at the Criskin, a ground-dwelling cuckoo that evolved in the deserts of South America about 50 million years after us. They hunt lizards and small mammals on foot, using those springy legs.
Shrew, native to the southwestern U.S., those red teeth are iron-rich, good for crunching bones. They're carnivores, mostly rodents, but they'll also take insects and even small birds.
This is the lesser ptarmigan. They're a smaller cousin of the rock ptarmigan that you find up in the northern tundra. Even in summer, they keep these mottled feathers, perfect camouflage against stone and moss.
This is our paleo beaver, a close relative of the modern one, but you can see it's built for climbing instead of swimming. That big flat tail still works as a rudder when it drops into the water, but most of the time it uses it like...
This is the chirrut, a tree-dwelling predator native to the forests of eastern Asia. They're related to weasels, but spend most of their time up in the canopy, feeding on acorns and small birds. They have flexible spines.
This is our chiselhead, number 10 on the sign there. It's a mustelid related to weasels and fishers, but you'll notice those huge front incisors. They use them like wood carving tools to split open hard-shelled insects.
This little guy is called a clada, sometimes known as a silky anteater. They're nocturnal, so catching one moving in the daytime is a treat. You can see how that tail works like a fifth hand, wrapping...
That's our cleft-backed antelope. You can see the deep groove running right down the center of his spine, almost like a canyon. It traps moisture and attracts insects, which is why that little tick bird stays with him.
That little runner you're watching is a desert spickle. They come from the dunes of North Africa and the Middle East. Those stiff quills along the back aren't like a porcupine's, they're more for display and to help.
The hornhead, a mountain grazer native to the high plateaus out west. Those big ridged horns can weigh up to 30 pounds and are used mostly for display and pushing contests in the fall. Despite their size, they stay surprisingly...
This is the fin lizard, sometimes called a Velosaurus bipod. They're native to the Sonoran ridges and spend much of the day upright like this to regulate body heat. That big sail along the back acts like a radiator, catching the breeze.
This is the gigantelope, one of the heaviest antelope relatives on the planet. Those horns can reach nearly 6 feet from base to tip, and each weighs close to 100 pounds. You can see the growth rings run.
These are kiffas, tree-dwelling monkeys from the humid forests of Southeast Asia. They're cousins of the macaques, but they move more like gibbons, with long arms and a swinging gait. Hear that?
This is the long-armed zita, a colobine monkey from the Canopy of tropical West and Central Africa. They're built for life in the high branches. Notice those arms are longer than the legs, letting them...
This is the long-legged quail, one of the largest of the New World quails. They're built for life in the hot deserts of the southwest and northern Mexico. Those high-set legs let them move quicker.
This is the long-necked dipper, a semi-aquatic bird descended from the white-throated dipper you might know from European rivers. Over generations, it adapted to slower, deeper streams, giving up most of its flight and extending.
This is the long-necked yippa, a relative of the antelope that evolved in the tropical grasslands of Lemuria. Notice that extra stretch in the neck and the flexible tongue? It lets them reach young leaves and shoots that the other grazers...
This little one is called a luti. It's a temperate woodland leopard, only active at night. You can see the darker stripe along the back, good camouflage under moonlight. They're close cousins of the common...
What you're looking at is the macaque, a great ape descendant of the Japanese macaque. Fossil records place its lineage about 50 million years beyond us, into what's called the postomic era.
This is the matriarch tinamou, one of the strangest birds in South America. Females, like the brown one here, look like typical tinamous. Males are smaller, can't really fly, and shimmer like tiny hummingbirds. After mating...
This little fellow is called a meeching. It's a close cousin of the lemming, part of the arvicolin branch of the chrysidid family. Think of them as chunkier, woodchuck-shaped lemmings. Even in winter, they hang around above ground.
Right up there on the trunk, you can see our night glider, Hastatus volans. By day, it stays plastered to the bark, pretty much invisible unless it blinks. At night, it opens those little membranes.
These are great nocturnal accipitrids, sometimes called night eagles. They live in temperate woodlands and grasslands and hunt mainly by sound, like owls, but they hit with the same power as a hawk. Notice the...
This is the oak leaf toad, Grima frondiform. You can see where the name comes from. Its back looks like a bit of the forest floor, even has those lobed edges like an old oak leaf. It's a true toad descended from...
This is the Pacowan bird snake of Anguis pacausis. It's an elapid from the Pacaus Islands and one of the most active, not to mention the most irritable snakes on the archipelago. See the pale mask on the head?
Hear that? That's the high male letting everyone know we're here. These are Pacowan whistlers, genus Insulornis, close cousins of the Australian golden whistler. Their ancestors rode storms across the ocean thousands of years ago.
This is the pamphret, Vulpamusetla acer. It's an apex mustelid found only in the northern conifer forests of Eurasia. See the heavy shoulders and that golden ruff? Those help it tackle prey.
This little guy is the parashrew, Pentodocatus volitarius, a red-toothed shrew from the western mountains of North America. It weighs about as much as a handful of sunflower seeds, but has a gliding membrane between its legs, so... This is the Parops lepidorostris, a close cousin of the broadbeak and the only surviving lineage of its branch of starlings. They come from the coniferous forests across northern and central Europe, where their broad slate...
The little guy there is the frit, Aquambulus hirsutus. They're one of the only truly semi-aquatic members of the mole family. Check how the fur parts like a duck's. Water just feeds.
The pigtooth Dolobrodon fosser is a little rabbit from the tropical grasslands of Africa. It feeds on low-growing herbs and roots, which it digs up with its tusks and spurs. Those second incisor teeth have become... This is the pilophile, scientific name Phaloris phaloris. They're a migratory sandpiper closely related to the red phalarope up in the Arctic tundra. You can see that bristly beak they use like a sieve sweeping through the water.
Like Pelagornid. It's a medium-sized pelagornid, about half the wingspan of the extinct Pelagornis, but fully adapted to life in the open ocean. Unlike their ancestors, these birds never need to come ashore. They hatch...
That's still looking at is the polar ravine, scientific name Vulpamus albulus. It's a predator unique to the high Arctic tundra. Looks a bit like a fox, but that muzzle and those incisors give away its rodent.
That's a posset, Thylacis virgatus, a rainforest specialist. It's one of the largest paramelomorphs, about the size of a small hog, and it fills a similar niche. That long, flexible snout is perfect.
These are predator rats, the dominant carnivorous mammals of the post-human age. They evolved from common city rats after most traditional carnivores vanished. Long bodies, quick reflexes, and those chisel-like incisors.
This is the Pitheron, Thalassamus piscivorus. They're carnivorous, semi-aquatic relatives of the predator rats from the polar ocean. There are several species, but this one is the northern
postomic period, about 50 million years after us. They're lagomorphs, relatives of rabbits, but they've taken over the grazing roles once.
This fellow here is a reed stilt, scientific name Hirundipes virgatus. They look a little like someone stretched a heron and a crocodile together. They're around 1 meter at the shoulder and about 130 pounds.
It's like a miniature dinosaur.
This is the raboon, Carnopopio. It's a bipedal member of the baboon family, but unlike its vegetarian cousins, both hunter and scavenger out on the African grasslands. Those long hind limbs let it cover ground.
What you're looking at is a root sucker, one of the palatop species. They're a desert chrysotid, kind of like a little rodent crossed with a fairy armadillo. Those pink plates are actually skin that's thickened and layered with keratin, giving them armor but keeping them flexible.
This is the sand flapjack, scientifically Platycotidus structor. It's part of the dipodid family, closely related to jerboas. Notice.
This is the shrock, Melissuncus sylvaceus, a large white-toothed shrew that fills the same niche the Eurasian badger once did. They're built for night work in temperate woodlands, using those broad forepaws to dig after.
The skirt is a flightless, wingless tern unique to the volcanic islands just north of Antarctica. They spend most of their lives in cold coastal shallows, paddling like ducks but hunting like small seals.
This fellow here is a slobber, scientific name Retiosteum cordipellium. They're an arboreal possum found up in the tropical forests of northern Australia. They move slow like a sloth, but they're
That's the snork, Lepidonysus lemuriensis. It's a small, suid-like bovid from the tropical grasslands of Lemuria. You'll notice that long head and the eyes sitting almost on top.
This is the spine-tailed squirrel, Humiscurius spinicaudatus. It comes from the coniferous forests of Eurasia and prefers cooler, high-altitude woodlands. See the white stripes along the
The animal's almost individually really is their shape is going to be breaking. Most suitable water of the animal's head for invasive stuff. It's to learn in rodents in wetter places. And yes.
Strank, also called Ungulagus virgatus. They're sometimes nicknamed rabucks because of those big ears and the way they hop when they're nervous. They're grassland grazers, stripy like a zebra, and the pattern helps break up the...
This animal here is called a strick, scientific name Cursimes longipes. It's the largest running rodent in the South American grasslands. Notice how it balances upright on those long hind legs, built for speed across...
The animal you're looking at is called a striga. Scientific name Savitia feliform. It's a rare felid that adapted for life in the treetops. Has a head like a tiger, but the body and physique.
A third surf bat, Ramala matapella. They're a kind of noctilionoid bat that lost the power of flight. Instead, those long wings act like hydrofoils, helping it maneuver through.
And what you're looking at is a Mevanarius amphibius, sometimes called the swimming anteater. It's a relative of the giant anteater, but adapted for wetlands. See that long tapered tail? It works like a...
You see full swaddle of the ranipes? They don't get swimming monkey. It's a tailless, semi-aquatic circumithecine from the forest wetlands of Central Africa. They came down from Allen's Swamp.
Over on the right, that's the Tapimus maximus. They look a bit like a tapir with tusks, but they're actually part of the Dasyproctid family. Those tusks are used for rooting up tubers and for defense. Out in the
This is the termite burrower, Neopartilotus subterrestris. It's a small partilode that's given up flying. Instead, it lives its whole life inside termite mounds. Those big spade feet dig the...
You're looking at the terratail, Ophiocaudatus insulatus. It's a shy, squirrel-like murine found only on the remote Pecos Islands. That flexible scaled tail gives it balance when it climbs and can crack like a whip when threatened.
This is the testodon, or Armitechinos impenetrabilis. It's an erinaceid related to hedgehogs, but you can see the armor that's more like an armadillo's. Those plates overlap like shingles.
This is the toothed kingfisher, Halcyon aquatica. You can see those little saw-like notches along the edge of the bill, used to grip slippery prey. The semi-aquatic tree kingfisher, common along the swamps and watercourses of North.
That rapid tapping you're hearing comes from this little guy here. It's a tree drummer, Proboscis species, an arboreal white-toothed shrew from temperate Asian woodlands. It beats on trunks with its forelimbs to...
This is the tree duck, Dendrocygna volubilis, one of Australia's whistling ducks. They like to roost above the water on branches like this, and that long neck lets them keep watch for predators.
This is the tree goose, sometimes called the hanging bird, scientific name Pendavis pedactylus. It's a woodland goose from temperate parts of Eurasia. Unlike most geese, it can't swim. Its toes are shaped for gripping branches.
This little one is a treble, scientific name Scandomys longicaudata. They're small arboreal rodents native to the coniferous forests across Eurasia. They actually descend from harvest mice, which you...
This little guy is the trobamp, scientific name Heruditherium saltans. It's a myosauricine shrew from the tropical forests of Central Africa. See that flexible snout?
This is the termine, Formicedrus pallidens. It looks a bit like an anteater, but it's actually a member of the pig family, a suid. They roam the floor of the African tropical forests, mainly at night.
You're looking at the tusked mole, Scalperdens talpiform. It's a close relative of the common European mole, but you can see those little downward tusks by the snout.
This little mammal is a trutile, or Terebradens tubaris. Most of the time they stay hidden and active only at night, but we keep a shaded enclosure so visitors can see them during the day.
This is the valley fan, or Valledorsum gravum. It's the largest even-toed ungulate on the entire continent of Lemuria. Fully grown males like this one can reach close to 2 tons. That heavy ridge over his shoulder.
What you're looking at is Balanornis vivipara, sometimes called the vortex. It's a baleen-bearing pelargonid distantly descended from penguins. Like their little cousins, they lost...
And over here we've got the waka. This is Anabrachium struthiiform, a big grassland rodent from South America. It's one of the few mammals that runs entirely on 2 legs, no front limbs at all. That tail does all the balancing.
Watu, scientific name Ungulagacento. It's a large rabbit native to the tropical grasslands of Africa. Those big ears look like a rabbit's, but the body is built for long-distance grazing with blotches a lot like a giraffe.
This is the woolly gigantelope, Megalodorcus borealis. It's the largest member of the gigantelope family, evolved for the harsh tundra of the northern continent. That thick double-layered coat traps heat just like a...
You're looking at the Zorander, Procerosus elephanensis. It shares ancestry with the giant forest hog, but it took a very different path. Those legs with the pale striping.
See those bright ears and nose flaps? They copy a lily species that's common on these islands. The flower sits right among the plants, keeping its face pointed up like a bud. Any insect...
Once the other vertebrates had established themselves on these islands, a brand new family of ground-dwelling predatory bats evolved. They walk on their front legs, exactly where a flying bat would have its wing bone.
Deviation from warm and investigated from the lunch. The Gurth, a rare cross between the small Asian mongoose and the big cats it once competed with. Its ancestor was brought by people to islands just...
Deadliest predators in the African European mountains. Sure-footed over the steepest ground and almost invisible among the rocks, it's the principal enemy of the mountain growth. They hunt...
Alright folks, here comes our big boy now. This is the mud gulper. Closest living relative is actually a water-dwelling African marsh rat from way back in the Quaternary, but look at the parallels to hippos and manatees. Eyes, ears...
Right in front of us is the harane, a carnivorous primate from the tropical grasslands. You can see the feline stance and those tiger-like stripes over the body which help with camouflage in long grass.
This is the desert leaper, Aquator adepsicatus. They're a giant gerbil kin that fill the same role a dromedary does, built to store fat in that big tail and go months between real meals. Those long legs let it cover